All right, so here we have on the back of the review sheet that we were looking at earlier, number 11, we want to make a proof. So we are making a proof that these two triangles, POQ, and this should say MNQ, we want to make sure that those two are similar. So basically we need a statements and reasons proof. And the first thing and the only thing that we're given is that MN is parallel to OP, and that is given to us. And that's marked on the diagram for you already. So when you know that two lines are parallel, what you're supposed to imply from those is that the angles around those lines are congruent. And they had all those special names that we associated last semester with them. So I'm going to choose N and O as one pair. That angle N is congruent to angle O. And my reason that these two angles are congruent is because they are alternate interior angles. All right, next reason. Well, you should also notice that these two angles across from one another are congruent. Now, you cannot call them both angle Q because they're different angles. If you want to, you can give them names like 1 and 2, and you can put that on the diagram, and now you can use those names. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and we know this because they are a pair of vertical angles. Now, we also know that P and M are congruent, and that's for the same reason as reason number 2. And if you want to use those, you're welcome to use those as well. But just having these two pairs of angles that are congruent makes the triangle similar. So I'm going to recopy that was what was the asked to be proved. POQ. POQ is similar to triangle MNQ, and that is by angle. All right. Next section. We learned in section 8.6 about ratios of similar figures. So that's where this question number 12 is coming from. And ratios of similar figures can be used to determine ratios of surface areas and ratios of volumes. So we learned that the ratio of the sides would just be like x over y. The surface areas would be like x squared over y squared. And the volumes would be like x cubed over y cubed. Okay, so let's look at what we're given. We're given surface areas, which means that the ratio that we're given, the 81 to 256, represents x squared over y squared. So if we need to find out ratio of volumes, we need to get back to the xy ratio and cube it. How do we do that? Well, if I take the square root of the 81 to 256, that will give me 9 over 16, and that's my x to y ratio. So to find the ratio of the volumes, I have to cube them 9 cubed to 16 cubed. And I believe you can use your calculator for that. I think that's 729 over, not squared, sorry, 729 over 4096. All right, number 13 and 14, these are all about geometric mean. We learned that if we wanted to find the geometric mean between two numbers, we simply had to multiply those numbers, so 9 times 36, and take the square root. So if we want to multiply 9 times 36, we get 9 times 36, using your calculator, 324. And the square root of 324 is 18. The other way to solve these geometric mean problems was to set up a ratio, and you're welcome to do that. So the geometric mean, if I was setting up two ratios, the geometric mean would go in these two locations, and 9 and 36 would go in the other two locations. And that's where we're getting that formula from. So let's use that. Same exact concept, but now different numbers for number 14. And the geometric mean we want between 12 and 24. So if I multiply 12 times 24, I get 288. And if I want to take the square root of 288, that's basically 144 times 2, which is 12 root 2. And that's the answer for number 14. All right, 15 and 16. These were geometric mean questions as well. You know they're geometric mean questions because they have a right angle and we're dropping an altitude. So that's how you can identify them. These three sides were geometric means of the parts of the hypotenuse that they touched. So x is actually the geometric mean between 15 and 5. So if I take 15 times 5, I get 75. And to simplify the square root of 75, that's 25 times 3, which is 5 root 3. And that's the value of x for 15. Number 16, I actually want you to change the diagram. We're going to make this little part here 6 and this part x. The other way is actually really complicated to solve. So yet again, these three segments are geometric means, which means 24 is a geometric mean between the parts of the hypotenuse that touch it. All right, 6 touches it directly right here. And then the whole hypotenuse is 6 plus x, and that ends right there as well. So now if we go ahead and we solve this and we square 24, we get 576. I'm going to also distribute this 6. We get 36 plus 6x. Subtract 36 from both sides, we get 540 is 6x. And so that makes x 90 if we divide both sides by 6. All right, the last problems on this page are proportion questions. Most of the time we're just going to cross multiply, and that's how we're going to solve these proportions. So I'm going to cross multiply and see what I get. X times 4 is 4x. 2x minus 4 times 3. Don't forget to distribute. That's 6x minus 12. So I'm going to subtract 4x and get 2x. Add 12 and get 12, and we get x is 6. That's the answer number 17. Number 18, cross multiply 6 times 24. 6 times 24 is 144. Equals x squared. Take the square root of both sides. X equals 12. Last but not least is this kind of crazy looking problem, but we're still going to cross multiply. X plus 2 times x plus 2 equals, cross multiply, x minus 1 times x plus 6. I'm putting these in parentheses so that I remember that I actually have to double distribute or FOIL in order to solve this problem. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you need to take a little bit more time, go ahead. This gives you x squared. We get plus 2x and plus another 2x, so that's 4x. And 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to do the same thing over here. X squared plus 6x. In fact, sorry, 1 second. I'm going to get plus 6x and minus x, so that becomes plus 5x. And then the negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. The x squareds nicely cross out. Subtract x squared from both sides. And then I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. That gives me an x over here. And I'm going to add 6 to both sides, which gives me 10. And that gives me x is 10. All right, good luck studying.